Welcome everyone, Adam the Woo here. It's my second channel, daily vlog channel. It's the Daily Woo. I had some ideas of what I was going to do, the topic of today's vlog, but I decided to scratch that and just talk about a pressing subject matter that is at hand that I know no matter what I did today would be weighing on not only my mind but also your mind. I thought I would address it. There's a hurricane, a massive, destructive hurricane like so many others that Florida and I, when I lived there for 25 years, had to endure and deal with, that is heading, and probably by the posting of this video, is already making landfall or at least squeaking by the coast of my former home state and the place that my parents still to this day reside. They are in Central Florida. They are not in increasingly insane danger by being on the coastline. Central Florida is not quite as bad, but nonetheless, this is nothing, nonetheless, this is nothing to turn your nose up at, nothing to sneeze at, if that's even the correct terminology. This thing is quite impressive, most impressive in the most horrific form. And I have been asked a few different things. I think 3 different types of things. Are your parents okay? Currently, my parents are doing fine. Their homestead looks to be like it's going to make it through safely. However, you never know which direction the tide will turn, per se. They do have a safe shelter, a facility that they can go to. They have a lot of very close friends who have connections. They have a place where they are secured no matter how strong the winds come through. Their earthly selves, their bodies will be fine. The same cannot be said for where they reside. My family does not have a place that I grew up in. We moved around a lot. We do not have a family home. They have been living in their current place for only a few years, give or take. So the memories there are not strong. So no matter what happens, whether something goes away, whether something is destroyed, I've had this conversation with my parents, with my mom and dad. In fact, I've talked to my mom every day for the last 3 days, and I will most likely call her today up until they either lose power, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. That does not happen. And we have had this conversation that things are just things. Things can be replaced, but ourselves are the most important. And thankfully, they have a place where they can go and breathe easy, breathe a sigh of relief. The second question is, why did you not go to Florida? Why did you not trek out there? And I also had this conversation with my mother that I have been talking to since I started to get a little of an uneasy feeling about this, the path of Irma, I believe they have named this storm. Now, this is not their first rodeo. It is not my first rodeo. When I lived there, especially working retail, I worked at Publix grocery store in Winn-Dixie. We had to deal with a lot of the hullabaloo, the over preparedness, which that's probably not even a bad thing because you always should be prepared. But there always is a sense of urgency. Sometimes that does not come to fruition. And working in grocery, you will know that the shelves, water, batteries, canned goods are completely wiped out. And it was not something what's the correct word? It was something I did not get used to, or got used to, because you had to deal with it so much. Ballpark, probably been through about 50 moderate hurricane thought processes, 20 of them formulated into the terrifying subject matter that they are. And then back, I think it was either 2003 or 2007, I was in a band at that time, and within 2 weeks, there were 3 hurricanes, category 2, 3, and maybe even a 4, don't quote me on this, that the eye passed gently near the nether regions of St. Cloud, Florida. Oh, look, all these birds flying around. And that was a horrible experience. My uncle, there's this interesting, if there is any humor in this, there's this funny story of between the second and third hurricane that came within the shadow of about a week, my uncle and I were tarping the roof nailing it down, one of those blue tarps that became ever so famous in the news media and magazines and on television. In fact, for years after those storms, you would fly into Orlando and all you would see was countless blue tarps, because a lot of insurance companies that were not legit went under and they could not afford to fix people's roofs. But I digress. The story goes, I was up on top of the roof with my uncle. We were holding this tarp. A gust of wind, one of the outer bands of one of these storms, came through, and it basically took that tarp and turned it into a parachute. And we almost got launched off the roof, which would have been an America's Funniest Home Videos moment, and a moment that I probably would have shattered a limb, not a tree limb like this, but a limb on my body, which would have been funny to look back, but it would not have been funny when it happened. Thankfully, we let go of the tarp at that specific moment, and it went flying off 2 or 3 houses down the neighborhood, and we had a nice little laugh about it until I had to climb down the roof and go get the tarp. I had been asked, how come you did not go to Florida? In talking to my parents, we decided it was not in the best interest. It did not make a whole heck of a lot of sense for me to fly out there just to sit there, basically in a place that would be safe and secure where they would be. You never know what's going to happen. So the decision was, if something tragic happens to the homestead, to my parents' homestead, I can always fly out there after the fact. They have plenty of friends. They have been there for almost 30 years, 27 years, 30 years. I lose track after all this time. That is their home. They have more than enough acquaintances, good friends, people that are willing to help until I get there. Knock on, that's not wood, that's kind of serves the same purpose. But knock on that, nothing comes to that. Hurricanes are scary. They are, man, dude, people always ask, what would you rather deal with? Tornadoes, hurricanes, avalanches? Well, people don't really ask about the avalanche. Earthquakes? I think I would rather deal with an earthquake, because I'm not trying to undershadow what happens in Florida constantly during this season. But there is so much of a buildup, there is so much panic, there is so much horror that goes through your mind. I'm the kind of person that I can have a panic attack when it comes to thinking about what could happen, where if you just spring it on me and it just happens, I tend to handle it a little bit better, and the odds are better in your favor that nothing might not happen. Like I said, not trying to downgrade this at all, because this sucker is, if Doc Brown or Marty had to describe this, he would say this sucker is nuclear. It can formulate a nuclear reaction and generate 1.21 gigawatts of electricity. I did offer my parents a place to stay. I talked to my mom a couple days ago when it first started to rear its ugly head, and I said, once you board a plane, fly out here. They have had, and still do, prior obligations that they needed to take care of. And like me, my dad and my mom are very stubborn, and they will do what they want to do. We all share that common trait. Hopefully I addressed some of the questions, comments, and concerns. Like I was saying, I had planned on doing a little bit different subject matter than this today, but I have noticed the peppering in of comments about this topic on the past few days. And today is the day it's supposed, I hope it doesn't, but today is the day it's supposed to strike and do the most damage. I will keep you posted. I am worried. I'm not going to say I'm not. I'm trying to look at the brighter side, but it happens pretty often around there. It's happened countless amount of times. And I think that could be a bad thing. I think it could always be a bad thing when something becomes slightly mundane. You do not think about what the sheer unincorporated capacity of terror that a storm could bring on. And I've had that conversation with them in the past. All right, let's hope, let's pray, let's wish, whatever it is you do, anyone who's in Florida, not just my family, my friends, whatever it is that sets your mind at ease, I'm wishing you the best. Let's all send out something, whether it's either a moment of silence, if it's some sort of mind meld, if you're religious, if you're not religious, if you think, whatever it is, just keep them in your hearts, in your minds. Anyone that's in Florida, or not just Florida, that thing's supposed to go up through Florida currently and up into the states. And then there's another one out there. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow with a little bit more jovial. And another point, sometimes people will say, oh, you're out having a lot of fun, while other people across the country are dealing with worry. And it's an interesting topic for someone to suggest that you put your life on hold and not continue doing what you're doing in the total opposite spectrum of where something else is happening, that you really have no mind over matter to change that situation. You have to just kind of go about your life. At least that's my opinion. But today was definitely 100% the exception. This needed to address, and I hope I addressed it accordingly. If I didn't, feel free to chime in down below and we can talk about it. I'll see you tomorrow. Vlog over.